live on your tablet, phone, and the KUTV app. This is 2 News Live.
Thanks for joining us on 2 News Live. I'm Brian Schnee. It is Wednesday, July 12th. We're going in depth today on the topic of Little Cottonwood Canyon, transportation concerns, and what UDOT put forth today for the ongoing conversation regarding bus service improvements. Oh, and that thing called the gondola. I think there's a lot of conversation around that. Before we get there, though, let's take a look at our headlines here tonight. You can find all these stories on our website, KUTV.com. A judge sentences a Utah man 25 years to life for each of his 4 family members that he killed. Colin Haney pleaded guilty almost 1 year ago to the murders. In January 2020, he shot and killed his mother, 2 sisters, ages 15 and 12, and his 14-year-old brother at the family's home in Grantsville. In Salt Lake City, the school board is moving forward with the possible school closures they talked about. The Boundary Options Committee has recommended 7 schools be studied for potential long-term closure. The board will vote on those recommendations in August. Meanwhile, the Alpine School Board is ending the process of closing schools for now. Last night, the board voted to formally end their study on the impacts for closing Lehigh, Linden, and Windsor elementary schools. Also in our headlines tonight, the recent high temperatures are causing freeways in some places to buckle. The most recent incident happened on the I-215 freeway near 47th South in Taylorsville. UDOT says this happens when concrete panels expand and shrink during the summer months. As we go in depth tonight, you can always get in touch with us throughout the show. You can use the hashtag 2NewsLive to join the conversation. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and many more places. All right, we're keeping the shades on because the sun is pointing right here at the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon. It is ramping up here in terms of temperature. We'll get to your forecast in just a few minutes. But the reason why we're out here, the conversation continues. UDOT announcing it intends to build a gondola in Little Cottonwood Canyon. When? That could be many, many years from now, but there are some obstacles in the way for making that happen. Some opponents think that federal officials may have concerns because the gondola would be built on Forest Service land. Lincoln Graves is live for us just down the street from where we are. Lincoln, I know you've been diving into this one. What'd you find out today?
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about this, of course, over the past few years, whether a gondola will be built in Little Cottonwood Canyon. Today was the record of decision coming from UDOT. As you said, this does not mean that there will be a gondola built in the canyon, but it does mean that UDOT intends to do that at some point. That is their goal. I'm going to switch our camera around so people can see the canyon from our vantage point. You're looking down that U-shaped canyon at this point. So basically, this is coming in 3 phases, and these first initial phases, they are going to be dealing with issues like increased busing, widening of roadways like Wasatch Boulevard, some infrastructure improvements, bus stops at some of the ski resorts. Those are all things that gondola opponents, they had been advocating for, so they're happy about that. But in phase 3, UDOT says they intend to build this gondola, but they admit that they don't have the funding for that at this point. So I did talk with gondola opponents today, and they tell me that, well, they're still hopeful that this can be defeated. They say it's up to the Utah legislature to fund the gondola, and they don't believe that legislators will actually do that when the time comes. They're hopeful that the initial phases will prove that we don't need phase 3. So that's kind of what I discovered today, Brian. The people I talked with, UDOT defending their decision, opponents saying, hey, this fight's not over. Brian?
You know, Lincoln, I was just looking in one of the many places where UDOT posted this information this morning. Over 500 comments on their Instagram post alone. Do you feel like people that are obviously in opposition to this aren't being heard at all, even though they submitted thousands and thousands of comments, obviously in opposition?
Yeah, so I did ask UDOT about opposition and how they measure opposition, and about the number of people who did participate in public comments. 2 News actually did a story in November where our colleague Darby Sparks found that the majority of comments in that public comment period were in opposition to the gondola. Now, one, UDOT said, public comment period, it's not a popularity referendum. That's not how they treat it. But they also took issue with perhaps how they see things as lopsided. They say, you know what, there were several agencies, several people who commented multiple times. So they're disputing the fact that perhaps it's a vast majority of people against this. Of course, opponents, they cite different polls, different surveys here and there. They do say that the majority of people in Utah are against this. UDOT not necessarily buying that, but also saying that, hey, public comment doesn't always decide a project. They say that the gondola is the best preferred alternative to address transportation solutions. Brian?
Lincoln Graves live for us tonight at the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon. Lincoln, thank you very much. Just a little while ago, I spoke with the general manager of the Alta Ski area. Mike Mon has been working there for quite some time. He's been very involved in this conversation and the open dialogue with UDOT. We spoke on 2 News at 4 o'clock about how he's feeling today after the record of decision was put forth on the EIS from UDOT. Take a listen. You guys have been a proponent of the gondola since basically the beginning, right? But today's announcement from UDOT regarding a record of decision for the EIS, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a step in the right direction. We've had the traffic issues in Little Cottonwood Canyon have continued to become worse and worse as the population grows, and this record-breaking season we just had with record number of avalanches on the road, record number of road closures, and lots of red snakes has made it really challenging for visitors, employees, residents, and vendors to get up and down the canyon. And so having another way to move people or improve transportation is vital, I think, to the long-term success in the canyon.
Well, the red snake you just heard from, that means traffic backup. That means a lot of brake lights. That's basically what he's referring to. Mike is also concerned about tolling. That is part of phase 1, which, mind you, is the only phase funded right now with any money backing it. That's about $150 million, thanks to the Utah legislature. Continuing our team coverage tonight, Wendy Holloran joining us now in studio. Wendy going in depth for us as our investigative lead, taking a look at the majority of people who are really publicly against the gondola project. Wendy spoke with some top leaders working to get answers for you. Wendy, I know you spoke with Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson. What did you ask her today?
Well, I asked her first and foremost if she thought that the process was fair. I got a little bit of a roundabout answer, so I decided I was going to ask again. As you know, Brian, Salt Lake County was not even invited to the table on this one. And she gave some great insight into why this should be a federal process as well. And as you know, our colleague Lincoln mentioned, the U.S. Forest Service wasn't brought into this, and there could be potential lawsuits and whatnot. She was disappointed in, as you mentioned as well, the vast majority of public commenters were, had negative thoughts about this. And, our job is to hold the powerful accountable. And so today we set out to try to get answers from state leaders. We went straight to the top as to why now these public commenters feel that their voices were not even heard. The green light, it was green lighted today, basically. And I know it's in phases, but the process in government is for the constituents to have a voice. And many of them do not feel that they have a voice now, because they disregarded their voices is how they feel. So I've been trying to get answers straight to the top. I'm going to tell our viewers more about that at 6. But Mayor Wilson did not seem pleased. But the fact remains that this is going forward in phases. Brian?
Wendy, as you know, if you're talking about going straight to the top, many times that means talking about our governor. I know you reached out to some of our top leaders in the state of Utah today. What did they tell you?
Well, the governor is out of town at the National Association of Governors Conference, so I did manage to get an email statement from his communications director. I don't want to give it away, but he, like others, UDOT and others, are complimenting going forward with it. It's a done deal as far as it sounds from the statement that I received. And I also reached out to the Lieutenant Governor's office, and I emailed, I called, I texted, I left a voicemail message. I called the office itself and was referred back to the public information officer for the lieutenant governor, and unfortunately nobody responded to any of my communication today. So I don't have an answer as to how the lieutenant governor feels about this.
Wendy Halloran looking into this for us, trying to get some answers tonight. Wendy, your report coming up tonight at 6 o'clock. Hope everyone can join you for that and take a look into what you've been working on today on another side of the conversation here in Little Cottonwood Canyon and the future of some transportation issues, how they could be sorted out. It was a very interesting year for that, with the road being closed countless times due to our weather conditions. We want to hear from you at home. What do you think about UDOT's decision to move forward with a gondola in Little Cottonwood Canyon? You can scan the QR code on your screen to weigh in. Right now, majority of you saying the gondola is the best option. However, this is really close. 38% saying it's the best option, just 36% saying the public input is not heard. So guess what? This is a split issue, as it has been since the very beginning. Let's turn to our weather now. Chase, I am obviously outside. I'm supporting the shades because I'm staring directly into the sun. My right eye started to cry. I won't lie to you guys. I was looking at the iPad and I started to tear up, but the breeze from the canyons feels so good because it's hot out here. It's warm.
It is hot. Jacket, I don't know. That's a little toasty for a sports jacket, Brian, don't you think?
I think you're right. I'm trying to trim down a couple pounds here. Is this a good method?
Yes, but you know what? Still drink lots of water and stay hydrated, right? We don't want you overheating on 2 News Live.
That's what I've been doing.
Oh, good.
I promise.
Good, good. And wear your sunscreen, of course, standing directly in the sun. All right, let's get right to your forecast. Temperatures have been hot, mid and upper 90s so far for most of us here along the Wasatch Front. Even in some of those typically cooler spots like Cache Valley and the Wasatch Back in the low 90s. Park City has been well into the 80s today. 95 in Vernal. We got triple-digit heat from eastern to southern Utah. St. George at 105. But, guys, it's going to get even hotter as we head into the weekend and early next week. And we do have our first heat alerts across the state of the year, including the Wasatch Front. We have an excessive heat watch that will likely be upgraded to a heat advisory as we get closer to the event. That's for Sunday and Monday. Southern Utah, your heat wave begins on Saturday, and that's where we have excessive heat warnings, potentially highs up to 115 degrees, and not a lot of relief overnight with your lows right around about 80. So it's quite the little heat wave that's moving in. Now, St. George, we're going to be flirting with record highs. 111, which would be 1 away from the record on Saturday. Sunday, 114 is the forecast, 1 away from the record. 112 on Monday, that would tie a record high. So I know southern Utah typically sees really hot temperatures, but this is a little on the extreme side. It's dangerous, especially if you're outdoors in the afternoon. So you got to make sure if you're going to be outdoors, do it in the morning, or definitely have some AC for the afternoon or a large body of water to really cool things off. A lot of pools down in southern Utah and a few lakes. Salt Lake, here we go, 102, which will be 1 away from a record on Sunday. Monday, 103 is the forecast. That's our hottest day. 107 is the record, and also the all-time temperature in Salt Lake. I don't think that's in jeopardy, but we might be close. Ridge of high pressure has the extreme heat. We see a slight little dip on Friday, and then it expands, and that's when we see the hottest weather of the year this weekend and into early next week. That high will shift to the east, though, by Tuesday and Wednesday, allowing temperatures in northern Utah to drop a degree or two, and the triple digits will hopefully go away. Winds, they've been a little gusty today, 15 to 30 miles per hour. Of course, that's elevating our fire danger. You factor in that fire danger, and it has been elevated. For some reason, it's not on the map, but it's been across southern Utah, and as we head into tomorrow, same thing across far southern Utah. We'll be dealing with some of that fire danger. Now, temperatures tomorrow well into the 90s in northern and central Utah again, but here comes the triple-digit heat. 106 in Moab, 106 in St. George. Sunny skies, even very warm in southwestern Wyoming with those highs well into the 80s. And again, the extreme heat doesn't arrive until later in the weekend. So St. George, 106 goes to 108. 111 on Saturday, 114 Sunday. Those overnight lows getting a bit warmer, especially as we head into next week because it gets a little breezy. Lows near 80. A slight dip Tuesday, Wednesday, but still very, very hot at 109, 108 Tuesday, Wednesday. Salt Lake, we're We're in the mid-90s for the next couple days, and then of course we've got that triple-digit temperature Sunday, Monday. You'll notice a few clouds rolling into Monday and Tuesday. There might be some stray storms in the mountains of northern Utah on Tuesday, but right now the valleys, we're keeping it dry. Highs dropping back into the upper 90s Tuesday and Wednesday. So a toasty forecast, especially those 2 days, Sunday and Monday. At least it's not 7 days in the triple digits. Brian.
Chase, I made 3 good decisions today. I drank lots of water before coming out here. I did put sunscreen on. It took me about an hour to do it, though. I didn't know Randy had some in the car. I left mine in the golf bag. Not very useful. The third best thing I've done all day is put these shades on. I'm taking a piece out of your playbook here from when I saw you doing your live weather forecasts out in an event last week, and I said, hey, I'm going to protect the eyeballs here, and it feels pretty good. I know it's not necessarily a trend they love, but
you look good too, Brian.
The jacket is questionable. I knew that was going into this one.
Yep.
Chase, thanks so much. So our triple-digit heat, as Chase mentioned, of course, spread out in the southern parts of the state. It's not keeping people off of the trails in southeastern Utah. The Grand County Sheriff's Office says this is their busiest time of year typically. They've been very busy when it comes to search and rescue calls that are heat-related. Arielle Harrison has been looking into this. She spoke with the sheriff. She also spoke with some hikers, and she's in Moab for us tonight.
We actually toured this emergency operations center. It's where search and rescue teams deploy when those calls come in throughout the county. And when it's as hot as it is, a lot of those calls are unfortunately medical emergencies related to the heat. It's something one hiking family told me they made note of before heading out to explore today.
We started out in Salt Lake, swam in the Great Salt Lake for the first time.
Mark Wilson is visiting the Beehive State from Tennessee with his sons. This morning, they hiked in Arches.
What stood out to you while being here beyond the beautiful scenery?
Neat town. It's incredibly hot out here.
To beat the heat, they started early and packed lots of water.
Yeah, we had at least 2 liters for each of us, so that makes for some heavy packs, but it was worth it. We went through almost all of it.
Both are key things rescue teams see people forget this time of year all too often.
We get millions of visitors every year, and people are just unprepared.
Grand County Sheriff Jamison Wiggins says they are one of the busiest search and rescues in the state.
This is one of our most used pieces of equipment.
Fully staffed for the first time in 20 years, Wiggins says they have the numbers and resources.
We just were awarded 2 new side-by-sides with the DNR and then 2 snowmobiles with the DNR to help our search and rescues.
But this time of year, the heat takes a toll.
You got to think about when they're doing that, they're also doing that in 100+ degree temperature.
Heading into the weekend, do calls typically increase?
Yes, they increase. That's typically when our search and rescues go up, is on the weekends.
With triple digits in the forecast, they plead with all visitors to plan ahead and come prepared.
I looked up the UV index yesterday and it said it was a 12, which is extreme. Got started early, took lots of water, take lots of breaks. If you find some shade, go ahead and sit down in it for a little while. Those were our main tips.
Wilson also shared with me they saw all kinds of people starting their hike late in the morning in the intense heat with very little to no protection from the sun and water. The sheriff's office says you need to be packing more water than you think when the temperatures are this hot. Reporting in Moab, Arielle Harrison, KUTV 2 News.
Well, Arielle, you make a lot of sense. Shielded by the sun? Yeah, not much right here. I'm going to go do the same. Thanks for joining us for 2 News Live tonight. Thanks to Lincoln Graves and Wendy Halloran for diving in to the conversation regarding the Cottonwood Canyon future as it pertains to transportation concerns there right now. If you missed any part of the program, you can find it playing back on our YouTube channel. Just search KUTV 2 News. We're back tomorrow night. Have a great rest of your evening.